Good evening, and welcome to Inside News. I'm Anna. Tonight is Wednesday, October 15th, 2025. We are tracking major political shifts across the African continent, from a military takeover in Madagascar to escalating post-election tensions in Cameroon. We will also cover significant diplomatic efforts in the Democratic Republic of Congo and pay tribute to a Kenyan statesman. Stay with us for comprehensive coverage of the stories shaping Africa tonight. Our lead stories tonight examine the forces of change, both abrupt and gradual, impacting nations across the continent. We will analyze the most impactful political and social developments of the day, from the corridors of power to the streets where citizens are demanding to be heard. We begin with tonight's major developments in Madagascar, where the military has seized control of the country following weeks of intense political turmoil. Colonel Michael Randrianirina, commander of the elite CAPSAT military unit, announced today that the armed forces are now in power. This follows the impeachment of President Andry Rajoelina, who has reportedly fled the country. In a stunning turn of historical irony, the very same CAPSAT unit that has now ousted Rajoelina played a key role in his initial rise to power during a military-led coup in 2009. In a statement delivered from the presidential palace, Colonel Randrianirina declared his intention to establish a national reform mechanism that responds to the aspirations of the Malagasy people. He later confirmed to the Associated Press that he is taking the position of president and expects to be sworn into office within the next few days. This dramatic power shift is the culmination of weeks of mass, youth-led anti-government protests. The movement began over electricity and water shortages and grew into a broader movement against poverty, corruption, and rising living costs. The situation marks another chapter in Madagascar's turbulent political history, which has been punctuated by several coups since its independence in 1960. In Kenya, the nation is mourning the loss of one of its most influential political figures. Former Prime Minister Raila Odinga has died at the age of 80. Officials at Devamatha Hospital in India's Kerala state confirmed that Odinga passed away from a heart attack, suffered during a morning walk while traveling abroad. Odinga leaves behind a powerful and complex legacy. A perennial presidential candidate, his activism was instrumental in steering Kenya away from single-party rule and toward a multi-party democracy. He ran for the presidency 5 times, most contentiously in 2007 against Mwai Kibaki, an election that triggered widespread ethnic violence. His political journey began in the 1980s with his opposition to President Daniel Arap Moi's one-party state, which led to his detention for much of that decade. After losing his final presidential campaign in 2022, Odinga launched a wave of street protests before recently entering into a political pact with his former rival, President William Ruto. Tributes are pouring in from across the political spectrum for a man who shaped Kenyan politics for decades. Turning to Cameroon, the political atmosphere is increasingly tense following the recent presidential election. The government has forcefully rejected a victory claim made by an opposition candidate. The Minister of Territorial Administration, Paul Atonganiji, issued a statement today dismissing the declaration by Issa Chiroma Bakary. The minister accused Bakary of attempting to implement a cleverly planned, diabolical plan aimed at setting the country ablaze. The government's official position is clear. Only the Constitutional Council has the authority to declare a winner. The minister had previously warned that any unauthorized announcement of results would be considered high treason. The situation is notable as Issa Chiroma was formerly a minister and government spokesperson under President Paul Biya, before quitting last year to launch his own presidential run. Biya has been in power since 1982, making him the country's second president since its independence. Our focus shifts to the Democratic Republic of Congo, where a new diplomatic effort aims to silence the guns in the country's conflict-ridden east. the DRC government and the M23 rebel group have agreed to create an international body to oversee a ceasefire. The agreement was signed in Doha, following mediation by Qatar. The M23 group, which the United Nations and Western powers say receives backing from Rwanda, controls large swaths of territory in the country's mineral-rich east. This new body will include representatives from the Congolese government, M23, and the International Conference on the Great Lakes region. Qatar, the United States, and the African Union will participate as observers. However, this diplomatic breakthrough faces a severe test. Earlier this year, the rebels seized the major cities of Goma and Bukavu, and fighting continues on the ground, where the conflict has already displaced over 7 million people. The path to lasting peace remains deeply uncertain. Those are tonight's primary developments. We turn now to other stories deserving of your attention. In Kenya, the family of a woman killed 13 years ago is escalating its demand for justice. The family of Agnes Wanjiru is calling for the extradition of a former British soldier in connection with her death. In a meeting described as crucial, Wanjiru's niece, Esther Njoki, met with British Defence Secretary John Healey. Speaking after the meeting, Njoki described the years of silence, frustration, and trauma her family has endured. She released a statement urging the UK government to ensure the man is arrested, extradited to Kenya, and faces trial without further delay. The body of 21-year-old Wanjiru was discovered in a septic tank in 2012, weeks after she was last seen leaving a bar with British soldiers. A controversial deportation agreement between the United States and Ghana is now facing a legal challenge. The advocacy group Democracy Hub has filed a lawsuit against the Ghanaian government, arguing the accord is unconstitutional. The lawsuit claims the deal was never approved by Parliament and may violate international conventions that forbid sending people to countries where they could face persecution. The legal action comes as a new group of 14 West African nationals arrived in Ghana on Monday under this third country deportation program, bringing the total number of deportees accepted to 42. In public health news, South Africa is preparing for a major step forward in its fight against HIV/AIDS. The country's health minister has hailed the planned rollout of a new HIV prevention injection, lenacapavir, or LEN. The drug, which is taken only twice a year, has the potential to end the HIV/AIDS epidemic in the country within 14 to 18 years. The rollout is set to begin in April 2026 and will initially target about 500,000 people in 23 high-incident districts. There will be a particular focus on adolescent girls and young women, and for good reason. Of the approximately 400 people still infected with HIV each day in South Africa, more than a quarter are from that demographic. Young women and girls in Zimbabwe are reclaiming an ancient tradition to address a modern crisis. They are reviving the Nahanga custom to combat child marriage and advocate for gender equality. Historically, the Nahanga was a private space where adolescent girls were prepared for marriage. Today, it is being transformed into a safe space where girls can openly discuss sensitive topics like sexuality, teen pregnancy, and economic empowerment. According to UNICEF, 1 in 3 girls in Zimbabwe is married before the age of 18, a situation the agency has called a national emergency. And in business news, Morocco's aerospace industry continues to expand. King Mohammed VI attended a foundation stone-laying ceremony for a new aircraft engine complex built by the Safran Group near Casablanca. The new facility will be a key part of the Mid-Park aerospace platform, further solidifying Morocco's position as a key player in high-tech industries. And in sports, a triumphant night in African World Cup qualifying has secured spots for 3 of the continent's giants. Senegal, the Lions of Teranga, are heading to the World Cup after a decisive 4-0 victory over Mauritania. At the Abdoulaye Wade Stadium in Dakar, Sadio Mane lit up the crowd with a first-half stoppage-time free kick, then struck again right after the break to secure the win. South Africa, in Nelspruit, Bafana Bafana booked their ticket for the first time since hosting in 2010, with a commanding 3-0 win against Rwanda. Goals from Mbatha, Apollos, and Makopa sent the home crowd into celebration. Ivory Coast. The Elephants topped their group and secured their place with a 3-0 win over Kenya in Abidjan. Frank Kessie scored early, followed by Yon Diomande and a late free kick from Amad Diallo. From political upheaval to cultural revival, and from diplomatic efforts to sporting victories, we have covered the breadth of a continent in motion. Here at Inside News, our commitment is to bring you these diverse stories with the depth and clarity you deserve. Thank you for joining us. Good journeys to all.